When love becomes the only medicine, miracles begin to happen. After weeks of sleepless nights, Toan and Diem finally see Grandma's health improving. But just as hope returns, the doctor calls them in for a private talk. Behind his calm voice lies a heartbreaking suspicion. Grandma may be facing a deadly illness. As fear and faith intertwine, the couple can only pray for a miracle and hold on to each other through the storm. Broken heart and sparks. Subscribe to our channel for more touching real-life stories about love, family, and After weeks of endless care, sleepless nights, and silent prayers, Grandma's recovery had finally taken a turn for the better. The pale shade that once lingered on her face was now replaced by a faint blush of warmth, a sign of life slowly returning to her fragile body. Every small improvement, each steady breath, each gentle movement of her hand felt like a miracle to Toan and Diem. They had spent so many days sitting by her bedside, holding her wrinkled hands, whispering words of encouragement, and hoping that one day she would open her eyes with that familiar, loving smile again. Now, that day had come. Toan, Diem. Grandma's voice was soft but clear, carrying both affection and weariness. Toan's heart trembled as he heard his name. It had been so long since she had spoken. He leaned closer, brushing away the tear that escaped the corner of his eye. Diem, standing beside him, covered her mouth in disbelief before smiling through her tears. The sight of their beloved grandmother finally speaking again filled the room with warmth that no sunlight could compare to. The hospital room, which once felt cold and sterile, now carried a gentle rhythm of life. Toan brought fresh flowers every morning, roses and lilies, Grandma's favorites, while Diem brewed the herbal tea that Grandma used to love before she fell ill. Together, they turned the clinical space into a little corner of home. Even the nurses noticed how peaceful the atmosphere had become whenever they visited. The couple took turns reading aloud from Grandma's favorite poetry book, sometimes pausing just to watch the slight curve of her lips when she smiled at a familiar verse. Outside, autumn was painting the world in shades of gold and amber. Inside, the soft sunlight filtered through the curtains, touching Grandma's silver hair with a gentle glow. Grandma often thought how fragile and precious those moments were, how time seemed to stop each time his grandmother laughed softly, or when Diem leaned close to feed her a spoon of porridge. Every gesture, every glance was filled with quiet love. One evening, as the golden light of sunset poured into the room, Grandma held Toan's hand and whispered, "You've done enough, my boy. You've both made me so proud." Her voice trembled with emotion, and Toan could only Just when everything seemed to be finally falling into place, a sudden call from the doctor shattered the fragile calm that had settled over their hearts. "Mr. Toan, Mrs. Diem," the nurse said softly, her tone unusually serious. "The doctor would like to speak with you in his office." Toan exchanged a quick glance with Diem, his pulse tightening. He squeezed her hand before following the nurse down the quiet corridor, each step echoing against the sterile white walls. The smell of antiseptic filled the air, a scent that suddenly felt colder, heavier than before. Inside the office, the doctor greeted them with a tired smile, but his eyes carried a weight that immediately set Toan's nerves on edge. He gestured for them to sit. The ticking clock on the wall was the only sound breaking the silence. After a brief pause, the doctor began in a low, careful voice. "Your grandmother's condition has improved remarkably, he said, but there are some irregularities in her latest test results. Diem's heart skipped a beat. She leaned forward, unable to hide the tremor in her voice. What do you mean by irregularities, doctor? The doctor folded his hands, searching for the right words. There are certain indicators that concern us. Her recovery is real, but her blood tests show abnormal markers that we cannot yet explain. We suspect there may be an underlying serious illness. The words serious illness seemed to slice through the air like a knife. Toan's face drained of color. He stared blankly at the floor, unable to process what he had just heard. Diem instinctively reached for his hand, her own fingers trembling. Are you saying it could be terminal? She asked, barely above a whisper. The doctor sighed deeply. We can't confirm anything yet, he said gently. We've sent her samples for further analysis to the central lab. It may take a few days before we have a clear answer. Until then, please keep her comfortable and don't let her worry. Hope is still very much alive. He gave them a reassuring nod, but his eyes betrayed a quiet sadness that words couldn't hide. As they left the office, the corridor seemed longer than before. The world outside the glass windows continued as usual. Patients walking by, nurses laughing softly, but to Toan and Diem, everything had gone still. The hum of hospital. That night, the hospital was wrapped in silence. The corridors were dim, the hum of the fluorescent lights blending with the distant sound of monitors beeping in other rooms. Toan and Diem sat by the window of Grandma's ward, the city lights flickering faintly beyond the glass. The air was cool and still, heavy with thoughts neither of them dared to voice. For hours they simply sat there, hands intertwined, hearts burdened with the weight of the doctor's words. Toan broke the silence first, his voice low and trembling. You know, Diem, he said, staring out into the night, when I was a child, I thought Grandma was invincible. She was always there, strong, steady, like a pillar holding everything together. He paused, his eyes glistening. I never imagined there would come a day I'd have to face losing her. Diem leaned closer, resting her head gently on his shoulder. She's still here, she whispered, and as long as she's fighting, we will fight with her. Toan's tears welled in his eyes, but he didn't let them fall. He looked at Diem, the soft glow from the window outlining her tired face. She had been his anchor through every storm, and tonight was no different. They sat together, whispering quiet prayers, some spoken aloud, others locked deep in their hearts. They prayed not just for good test results, but for time to care for her, time to tell her how much she meant to them, time to say all the words that love sometimes leaves unsaid. As the clock struck midnight, a gentle breeze slipped through the open window, stirring the curtains. Grandma stirred slightly in her sleep, murmuring something incomprehensible. Diem rose, pulled the blanket up to her shoulders, and brushed a stray strand of silver hair from her forehead. The old woman looked peaceful, almost angelic, under the soft hospital light. Toan watched quietly, his chest tightening with emotion. She looks like she's dreaming, Diem said softly. Maybe she's seeing Grandpa again. Maybe she's happy. Toan smiled faintly. If that's true, he murmured, then I hope her dreams are filled with all the people she's ever loved. They stood there, side by side, gazing down at the woman who had given them both so much, a lifetime of guidance, warmth, and unconditional love. Outside, the night deepened, but within the quiet room, something luminous remained. It wasn't just hope, it was faith. Faith in the strength that love carries. Faith that miracles
Hello, xin chào tất cả các khán giả của kênh Lý Tử Sĩ Review. Vậy là trong câu chuyện của chúng ta ngày hôm nay thì bà nội của CEO Toan có nguy cơ mắc phải một căn bệnh rất là nguy hiểm. Nhưng chưa có kết quả chính xác. Toan và chỉ biết động viên và cầu nguyện sẽ có kết quả tốt trong ngày mai. Mọi tình tiết hấp dẫn về câu chuyện sẽ còn được hé lộ vào tập tiếp theo. Các bạn hãy bấm vào nút subscribe để đăng ký kênh sẽ nhận được thông báo mới nhất về các tập phim sẽ được phát sóng hàng ngày trên kênh nha. Cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều đã luôn theo dõi ủng hộ kênh của mình. Đừng quên hãy bấm nút like, share và comment cho video của mình nha. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.